Just letting you know that we are live.
Well, thank you, Ms. Niola. There he is. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's 2:00, and this is the Washington County Board of Commissioners work session for Tuesday, November 30th, 2021. I'm Chair Catherine Harrington, and I'm joined today by Commissioner Vice Chair Pam Treese, Commissioner Nafisa Fai, and Commissioner Roy Rogers. Commissioner Jerry Willey is excused today. So welcome, everyone. We'll start with board and leadership communication, which before we finish will include our reviewing a draft letter. So who would like to go first? Oh, if no one jumps in, I will. Go ahead, Vice Chair Treese.
I'll go first. Oh, you did. I see I was unmuted. Usually you see that. So, good afternoon. It's nice to see everybody. I hope you all had a good holiday weekend, and it's nice to be back together. My report includes 2 weeks, as I'm sure everybody else's will. In my report, I wanted to give you a heads up on some of the parts and pieces of the AOC conference that I attended, and it seems like forever ago, but I think that there are some important things that we might even want to be talking about more in depth at a roundtable or something like that. But there were some highlights. Chair Harrington could not go, and I stepped in to give a report on best practices in relationship to COVID, and I think that it was well received from around the state. Many different commissioners talked to me about how we develop the relationships with the 70+ partners that we have, and there were other questions. So my hat's off to Dorian Russell for putting that presentation together, and also, frankly, to our Health and Human Services staff, who really are the backbone, obviously, of how we did handle the pandemic in relationship to getting the word out to our communities and vaccinations and testing and all that. So, but that went well. I did attend a presentation on taxation. It was led by Sushila Jayapal and a commissioner from Multnomah County, and the county administrator from Deschutes County. His name has just left me, but they did put together a really nice video about some basics in relationship to property taxes that I have shared with our communications department in hopes that either we create something like that or use theirs. They kind of do around Oregon theme, and the last visual is the tallest barber pole in I think it's in all of Oregon, which is in Forest Grove. So it would be appropriate for us as well. But it's basic, but it's very good and could be something that at the very least we put up on our website. There was a good presentation and a recap of the ARPA funding rules and regulations. I forwarded that information to Dorian as well. There was some disappointing pieces for me at the conference, and that was that in the end we elected our leadership, or the process to replace the president, if you will, or the chair, and it goes chair, second chair, or first chair and second chair. And Commissioner Jessica Vega Peterson had announced that she was running for second chair. She did a great presentation at the lunch the day before. She was the only person that was running. I did her nomination speech on the day of, and it was, in my mind, it was unfortunate that there was a group of people that group of commissioners that did not feel comfortable with a commissioner from Multnomah County being in that role. They enlisted a commissioner from Marion County who is a first-term commissioner, just newly elected, had a first conference at AOC. She ran at the last minute, and it was a tie vote, and there was a flip of the coin. Apparently, our bylaws say that there's a coin toss at the end, and she lost. Commissioner Vega Peterson lost the coin toss, and so now we have the commissioner from Marion County. It was, in my mind, it's not the way to run an organization, but we could talk further about that, and I'll be on record for saying that I was unhappy with the way it all unfolded. So that's AOC. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer it. I also did attend this CFTLC meeting. There's been some changes in the budget process. I'll report on those in depth on Thursday, but not real significant, but something that you all should be aware of. On Saturday, Commissioner Fye and I attended the West Side Food Brigade. It's the food pantry that does a weekly food pantry. That's an amazing process. Both Commissioner Fye and I went on a tour to see how it works. And apparently it's one of the only food pantries where you can actually shop and you can get different products that you may individually need. You put together your list first, and they go through and pick out the products for you. Everything as diverse as oat milk. I mean, there's a lot of different products. So it was an interesting process to learn that. And then the attendees moved into the Thanksgiving dinner giveaway that Commissioner Fye and I were a part of. And it was awe-inspiring to see the number of volunteers, the amount of food that was donated, and the appreciation that everybody expressed for the work that was being done by the volunteers, but also the community feeling of this is what Thanksgiving is all about. So it was really cool. And then I also got to participate with Commissioner Rogers. See, when you go first, Commissioner Fye and Commissioner Rogers, you get to tell all the stories, right? So on Monday of last week, I went to the Terrace Glen turkey drive, and we handed out turkeys with Commissioner Rogers and Marnie at Metzger Elementary School, and that was really cool too. I mean, it was in connection with Terrace Glen, the affordable housing development that's going in there. They donated the turkeys, and Roy, perhaps you can provide more detail there. It was actually the Related Northwest that did that, but it was. And the families were there from school picking up kids. They got turkeys, and the kids enjoyed it. It was again a really nice opportunity for me and for everybody else. And also last week I met the OSU Extension Director, as I believe everybody did. Just a really interesting person with a very in-depth history that will bring a lot of value, I think, to the Extension Service, as well as to us in Washington County and how we work with 4-H and our organizations. So I could go on for another half an hour if you'd like, but at this time, I think it's probably appropriate for me to turn it over to Commissioner Rogers.
There we go. Got unmuted. I'll just say ditto, Pam, I guess. I don't know. I go back to some real quick stuff. Just to tell you, I appeared before the Washington County Coordinating Committee a couple of weeks ago with a simple thought, and I still think it's right. And hopefully we might take a look at this at some point. I talked with several mayors afterwards, and they thought the point was well taken, that with the advent of bond interest being about anywhere from 2 to 4%, that's still great borrowing rates, and construction costs going up to, anywhere from 8 to 12 to 14%. It might be time for us to look again, as we did several years ago, at bonding some of the MSTIP money. Now, I understand we're on a pay-as-you-go basis. That's the way we've been, but we made that decision a few years back because we knew that if you're going to have high construction costs and they're going to continue to go up, you're never going to quite catch up with the demand. So they like the idea. Several of the cities already are doing it. They were doing that off record. So maybe Nafisa and her role can see if there's any interest there. I can tell you there is from some of the mayors saying, let's just be mindful that we could save some money. So I wanted to tell you about that. On Tuesday, I don't think there was any time off last couple of weeks. I had an interview with our friend Eric at TVC TV. That was kind of interesting. I think he had exercised all of the fine speakers that he could find, all of you and others. And he said, I got nobody and you're the only one around. So I want to talk to you. So I think that was the gist of it. Met with CWIC, which is the insurance company. We had an annual meeting just talking about annual things like audit reports and appointment of the folks who administer the plan. It's always interesting to have that meeting. Of course, that's virtual. Had a little Thanksgiving. I actually got away for a little bit. Let's see, we did the turkey drive. That was nice. As Pam mentioned, that the folks are building some low-income housing right across from Washington Square. And that was kind of their contribution to the community. They weren't asked to do it. They volunteered, which I thought was very, very nice. And that shows some real good corporate responsibility. Met with the OSU Extension Service person, as you all did. I'm not sure that I made a great splash. I just told them nobody knew about the services other than us who were around it all the time, and maybe they want to raise their profile. So that seemed to pique his interest a bunch. Had a briefing with Comey in regard to Greenworks that I won't take a bunch of your time on, but they're going to ask for a particular financing process. I didn't mean to be less than polite, but apparently we do get to recapture some fees, a few $100. And I said, well, for a few $100, it's hard to even look at anything. Our good attorney there, Tom, charges more than that in an hour. So I'm not sure that it's all that exciting, but they do use it in Multnomah County, and they're trying to use it over here. It sounds like an interesting process, and Comey certainly is looking into that and would be much better at talking about it than I. Let's see. Yesterday had a meeting with the finance committee at Work Systems. Pam used to be involved in that too, so she knows that we're chatting about, where are we going and all that sort of thing. And that's always interesting. And so I suspect somebody will also talk about the appointment to the non-eventful appointment. I mean, I was kind of surprised we needed to take that much time when you have a candidate of that quality who is stepping forward. It's a little hard to get too serious about asking any hard questions because they're just so well equipped to do it. But anyway, we had that yesterday. Have another meeting on Wednesday with our friends at it's the executive meeting at CWS and CWI, I should say. Too many acronyms. The Work Systems Inc. There we go. And I think that's probably all you need to know about this right now. And Nafisa and I were going to meet on some temporary housing issues, but I think she has a conflict, so we're going to need to reschedule that. And that's just a few of the calls, not counting the TriMet calls about their excitement about the maybe possibly the Southwest Corridor and all how that would work. And so anyway, I'll stop and turn it over to Nafisa.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. I think you forgot one thing that I'm going to throw it back to you, which is the OSU extension. We had the meeting, you and I thought you asked a really interesting and powerful questions, which is around how do we get our Washington County residents to care about that program and their outreach and education. So I don't know if you want to say any more on that, but I thought that was, I'll speak for that. Commissioner Rogers and I attended that meeting with OSU extension, and it was a really great. Commissioner Rogers has a lot of information and knows a lot, and it was really educational for me to attend with you. I'm very honored, and I was listening more than I was talking because you really had great questions, especially around the, like, how do we get our folks to care about this program if they're not doing outreach and education, extensive outreach and education? And they took it really to heart, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of it. They were really appreciative of the feedback that you gave. So I'm excited. I do have a long list, but I'll keep it brief. One of the highlights while we were on vacation, sabbatical, I'm not sure, when we were on pause for the holidays, one of the things that I did with some of our staff is I had the opportunity to tour Clackamas County with Commissioner Paul Savas. This is really a great opportunity for me to learn about their existing transportation challenges, infrastructure challenges, and gaps. I learned a lot about their challenges, which are really super similar to some of the challenges that exist in District 1, like the lighting challenges, number of bus stops and benches. But it was a really great, it was about 3-hour long tour, Clackamas County, throughout the county, and seeing different cities. So thank you, Commissioner Paul Savas, and want to extend gratitude to Brenda and Aaron Wardall. They were our staff present on that tour, and we look forward to giving Commissioner Paul Savas a tour of District 1 soon. We're working out the details. Well, I'll keep you all in the loop, mostly because I want you all to see some of the challenges that I will be sharing for District 1, and we can maybe think through about for future. We also had an opportunity to tour their tiny homes for homeless veterans. And I think that's something that will be really great to see something similar in Washington County for both the veteran and non-veteran homeless people in Washington County. And it was a very dignified way of living, and I really appreciate it. JPAC and WCCC meetings happened while we were on pause as well. And I had my monthly town hall for November, which is a really good conversations. I've had multiple meetings with our legislators that span out to Washington County. So during that time, I used the opportunity to meet with Suzanne Wepper. She is a state representative, Republican state representative in Tillamook, and had a great, wonderful conversation. I also met with Senator Kim Thatcher, who's also redistricting will change this, but also spans to Washington County for her district. And I met with State Representative Sherry Scouten, who's also Dick Scouten's wife, former District 1 commissioner. And then I had a meeting with Five Oaks Museum, formerly Washington County's museum, board chair director, Alfredo Moreno, and it was a really great conversation about what the museum is doing to really engage our board, to educate us, to bring us along on the vision of the museum. And then I had a briefing. I think Commissioner Trees, you left this for me. It must be. We had a briefing on supportive housing services, IGA. So that was really good briefing to know the conversation that is going to come to our board, and where our staff, our experts, leaning on some of the recommendations on, what's our role versus what's Metro's role. And then also, this must have been left for me, Commissioner Trees, the Civic Leaders Celebration yesterday. We had the opportunity to celebrate Washington County Civic Leaders. There's a couple groups of people graduating, and I actually attended, but I didn't get the opportunity to speak because I had challenges on childcare. And I think on my two, Commissioner Trees, the highlight was the West Side Food Brigade, and want to extend my gratitude to June and Kevin, husband and wife, who are spearheading this effort, and was really wonderful. And we've met wonderful people some doppelgangers. Is that what the word is? Dabble. So it was great.
It was a Senator Riley doppelganger. I went up to say hello to who I thought was Senator Riley, and Nafisa was trying to grab at my back. It wasn't, but boy, it looked like him. So.
It was a great. And I think my staff just sent to me now 650 Thanksgiving meals we handed out that day, and then 250 standard deliveries. It was great Thanksgiving.
That's
Everybody
wonderful.
is very grateful, and that's all I have for now.
That's exciting. All righty, well, I'll round it out. As you know, I started the beginning of the month on Friday, November 5th, getting out of town for vacation. And then the next day got a phone call that my brother had an unfortunate serious accident. And a few days later, I flew to New Hampshire and was there through last Tuesday, November 23rd. But even though I was on the West Coast or the East Coast, I was trying to maintain a whole roster of meetings here on the West Coast. That included getting to meet the new OSU Extension Vice President, Dr. Ivory Lyles, as all of you mentioned. Then also attending our Board of Commissioners meeting on Tuesday the 9th. Then on Monday the 15th, we had retreat number 2 for the Metro Supportive Housing Services Oversight Committee, with a lot of really good grounding for all the community members about how the measure came to be and how rooted equity is in that program. That same day, I held the monthly chair mayors meeting where we went over the supportive housing services program with each of the mayors as part of the rollout that I and you asked our staff to do to all the city councils as that program services all of our communities here in Washington County. On the 16th, in the evening, I was invited to engage with the Committee for Community Involvement. It was wonderful to talk with them, and they asked me a whole host of questions and indicated that they wanted to have me back after the first of the year as well. On Thursday, the 18th, I was able to participate in the AOC business meetings thanks to Zoom or internet technology like this. Commissioner Treese is right. She and I and Commissioner Fye all participated, and there were 3 items that offered a higher level of commonality amongst the 36 counties, and each of them failed. And I think Commissioner Treese, you very ably described the disappointing experience of lack of process for the leadership that followed. And it's really unfortunate that our peers don't value the years of experience and contributions that Commissioner Vega Peterson has made to the betterment of the AOC collection. Let's see, on Friday the 19th, Commissioner Treese and I participated on the Preschool for All Task Force, and we have a presentation coming to us over the next couple of weeks on that. Then last Monday, the 22nd, I engaged, as I believe you all have, with our team on the website redesign. They're really working hard with it, really making sure that we increase our customer service, ease of use for our very important information infrastructure. Also that day, Governor Brown held one of her quarterly meetings with county commission chairs and judges where she made an ask of us to press our legislature on a funding package that she is proposing that includes rental assistance and extending the eviction time period. She also asked us to check in with our legal counsel about the opioid settlements, which I did with Mr. Carr and Mr. Anderson. Our team has been very engaged on that, is working very collaboratively with the Attorney General's office, but there are some very important provisions that they need to continue to make progress on. So despite the governor's positioning that our counties may be dragging our feet, we can be assured that our county is not dragging its feet. Very engaged and doing a terrific job for us. I also had a good meeting with Senator Rob Wagner and members of the Senate Majority Office. And they're hoping that we will receive the information on Senator Riley's resignation. But as I understand the process, the clock for that will begin once the resignation is effective, which, as I understand it, continues to be the end of December. So stay tuned. Thank you, Commissioner Rogers, for mentioning our joint County Commission meeting yesterday, where we had the pleasure and honor of appointing Akasha Lawrence Spence to the Senate District 18 position. She is speaking very well to the issues, particularly for rental assistance. And lastly, I just want to mention at the Tri-County Chair meeting of last night, Chair Smith shared information about Clackamas County and having difficulty with ODOT moving forward with a tolling project on I-205, including with the Abernathy Bridge project as the very first project in Oregon that would implement tolling, which does not deliver on the intent of House Bill 2017 from the 2017 session, and is a little bit complicated because of the 1 cent funding that was made possible through that legislation. I asked her to please send information, particularly to both our JPACT and MPAC representatives, as this information will be coming forward at those meetings. As I understand it, JPACT will be asked to weigh in potentially at the January meeting. And so specifically what I understand she will be sending is their transportation value statement. So I don't know if Commissioner Salvis has already shared that with you or not, Commissioner Fye. So we'll see. Welcome back. We continue to do exciting work here. I'm just really glad to be home here in Oregon and trying to work from one time zone. So thank you so much. And Vice Chair Treese, thank you for stepping in for me at AOC to cover those meetings and presentations that I was not able to participate in, as I wasn't able to attend AOC in person. It's great to have colleagues. So thank you all. Any last items from board communication? Yes, ma'am.
I wanted, I think I wanted to just, I don't know, to add to the experiences you both had with AOC. I too was like confused about this whole rural and urban divide, and I think it's going to be interesting to see the future AOC, the Oregon Association of Counties, and is there going to be two AOCs, one for urban and one for rural? So because if we can't agree on things, you know, but urbans have things to accomplish and rural has things to accomplish, does it make sense to continue this journey, or does it make sense to become two? So
Well, I continue to remind our colleagues throughout the state that something like 80% of the acreage in Washington County is rural acreage. And we have a vibrant and thriving agriculture farming community, as well as timber industry, tremendous assets in natural resources. So they label us as urban because the majority of our population lives within urban and suburban communities, but we have an awful lot in common. And it's really unfortunate that our differences are held front and center by so many.
So if I could just make a suggestion here, and to Commissioner Fai's point, I'm Vice Chair of District 8 right now, and I intend to be discussing this with our Chair, Sonia Fisher, and see if we can have our next meeting for District 8 discuss, how are we going to deal with these issues, and how do we move the ball forward? I also believe that we should be engaging Gina Nickel in those discussions as well. Mm-hmm. So that's just to let you know that that's where I see a next step coming.
So just a quick question on that. So I think starting with the first of the year, you're the chair of AOC District 8. You've been our vice chair all this past year, and I'm grateful for that and your willingness to step forward as the full chair. Ordinarily, we don't have a District 8 meeting until September. Can you work with Gina Nickel and the vice chairs of District 8 and see if you can convene us in the first quarter of the year, perhaps, New Year?
That's, excuse me, my dog's barking, but that is, he agrees and I agree. So thank you.
Terrific, thank you. Say hello to your dog for us. Okay, well, why don't we turn it over to leadership communication, Ms. Angie.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, and good afternoon, Board of Commissioners. So let me start with some good news. Emergency rental relief assistance. I'm proud to share that we have expended by today's deadline, the Federal Treasury's deadline, 40% of our emergency eviction relief dollars. This was a huge push, both by community action as well as our culturally based organizations in processing the applications. Some of the progress that we've made since we last presented to your board was we've reduced the timeline of the application processing. It was 65 days. And we are now down to 45 days, so 20-day reduction. So that's a huge accomplishment. In addition, we've had 3 facilitated discussions with our community-based organizations to see how we can partner and work together differently to get these dollars out. And Chair, you had mentioned there may be additional dollars coming in the future, so this work is incredibly important. We are at a point this coming meeting further in that discussion to really ask, after there's been the learning of Treasury guidelines, what it would actually mean for other organizations to step into this space. I kind of call it we need to have our eyes wide open and be sharing all the information that we have. So I'll provide another update when we have additional information, but I also just want to share gratitude to Jenny Proctor, Ruth Osuna, Latricia Tillman, and Dorian Russell for their leadership in this work. Relative to COVID, we do have one more positive case in the workforce from last week. So we do have currently 5 employees who are off work in isolation. And then I also attended the AOC conference. This was my first conference. The county administrators actually meet over a 2-day period. And they had nominated me and then selected me to serve as the vice chair of the county administrator group, which will be 2 years. And then I'll be rotating into the chair of that group. I would like to maybe transition, since we do have an important event coming up this week on Thursday night, the budget town hall. So I have asked Latricia and Latricia Tillman, our Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer, as well as Amanda Garcia Snell, our engagement manager, to be here to give just a brief overview and to answer any questions. I know much about the communication has been through email. So I'll turn it over to you, Latricia.
Thank you so much, Ms. Angie, for the opportunity to just briefly introduce the Budget Equity Town Hall that we'll be having on December 2nd, and then I'll turn it over to Amanda to walk through some of the logistics for the awareness of the board. So per the board's request, we are focusing on building out an intentional look at how we center equity throughout our budget process, and that includes the first launch of using a budget equity tool as our departments build out their budgets, and also engaging community intentionally in providing insight into how we can better address needs of communities who've historically been marginalized or underserved within Washington County into our budget process. And so we're looking forward to an equity-focused town hall. Again, unfortunately, unable to conduct it in person. And so we're looking at ways to engage a diverse community with specific partnerships with culturally specific and other community partners to engage community in conversations about the equity needs or unmet needs within specific communities, to inform our budget preparation and to inform the board's deliberation and policy priorities. So that's kind of high level. We have very limited time to cover a lot of ground within that town hall. And so I will turn it over to Amanda to talk about how we're going to manage that and be real clear about what's the board's role in terms of both speaking, but most of the time really focused on listening to community input. So I'll turn it over to Amanda for a more logistical overview for the board.
Thanks, Latricia. So as you know, the town hall will be on Thursday from 6 to 8. We're asking you all to join at 5:50, and you should have an invite in your with the link in your Outlook calendars. We'll begin with a brief introduction from commissioners, from you all, mentioning your name, your district, and then which breakout sessions you'll be attending. We'll have a few different breakout sessions that will be topic specific. So the commissioners, you all will do a brief introduction, and then there will be a 10-minute high-level presentation on the discretionary parts of the county budget. Community members will then have an opportunity to join up to 3 different breakout rooms to provide feedback to departmental staff. So each of those breakout rooms will be co-facilitated by a community partner and department director. They are broken up into service areas, and then there will also be a note taker and someone to report back at the end of the town hall. And community members will be able to move from breakout session to breakout session on their own. And then commissioners, you all will have time at the end of the town hall to share your own thoughts. And that will wrap it up. And then there will be a quick minute to close where you'll provide those final comments, and then we'll have a final closing.
Can I ask a pretty basic question, or
Sure.
what I think is basic? So I've had the opportunity to participate in breakout rooms where Zoom has assigned us to a room and then brought us back in. I've not had the experience yet of getting to move about freely to different breakout rooms. Will that be explained to us, and will it be seamless to us on how to do it? Or do I need to learn how to do it beforehand?
No, so we will be using Zoom for this as the platform for this town hall, and the moderator will explain how it's going to work. But essentially, you as commissioners, since you'll be a little more free flowing, you can leave the room at any time. It'll take you back to the main room, and you just let the person in the main room know where you would like to go next. So seamless, hopefully. I think technology, I'm not confident saying 100% seamless, but we have a tech run through on Wednesday. We've done some tech run throughs already, and we're doing everything we can to make it as seamless as possible. Chair Commissioner Treese.
So do we know about how many people will be attending? Do we have a sign up? Do we know what our attendance looks like?
So far we have about a little over 80 people registered to attend, and most of those are community. There are a few staff in there as well, but mostly community.
Great, thank you.
We are asking staff to participate in the budget town hall by watching the live YouTube channel unless they are participating as Washington County residents on their personal time.
Any other questions?
Oh, I don't think so. Thank you,
thank you.
Ms. Tillman and Ms. Garcia Snell. Back to you, Ms. Angie.
Thank you. So now I would like to actually introduce one of our newest assistant county administrators, Marnie Kyle, who just, I feel like I want to do a formal introduction, Marnie. Marnie's technical first day was Monday, and I can confidently say that already you are just making such a difference, and I'm so glad that you said yes and put your name forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Miss Angie and board. It's nice to be here and in my day 2 of a new role. So I appreciate all the support I've been getting from CAO. Angie in particular has just bent over backwards to get me all set up. So I really appreciate that. So I'm here to request that you consider a letter that you all received, I think on Friday. I'm already losing track of time. And so the letter is a requirement to apply. It's letting the state AOC and League of Cities know that we are interested in a grant opportunity. And so this came to us because several of our city partners who are listed in the letter reached out to us and expressed interest and asked us if we were willing to apply for this opportunity to receive some funding for joint planning and response to the homeless situation within Washington County. So if we are successful and asked to move forward with an application, we would work with our city partners to dot all the I's and cross all the T's and develop the application and the plan, which would describe how we would do this joint planning together. These funds would be additional to our SHS funds, but I think that we're really well positioned to work together because of the resources that we will have as part of the SHS program. And then the last piece is there will be 5 successful applicants for $1 million for the counties that are successful for a 2-year project. And to be fully transparent, part of that 2-year process would be that we, with the cities, would need to develop a sustainability plan for working together jointly. So again, you know, we do have some options that Washington County can bring to the table, but we're hopeful that this will really become a true partnership and that the cities will also bring their resources to the table. So I will stop there, answer questions, and take any feedback on the letter or just listen to your thoughts.
Well, commissioners, I'll just share that I reviewed the letter on Wednesday and sent Ms. Kyle, the team, and Ms. Angie some additional comments from myself just to ensure that the letter strengthens up the needs statement and essentially answers the question of why do we continue to have unmet needs? Why don't we have enough money to do this already? You know, particularly since across many forums, folks understand that we're very collaborative here in Washington County. So why do we need some additional funding to help us do something that we're known to do? But I think this is a very intentional effort, and I don't know who will be the grant review committee. So I don't take for granted their prior knowledge about what we're doing and how we're doing, and that this funding is in addition to the very directed use of the funds from the supportive housing services measure. So those were 3 comments that I emailed directly to the team that I had not previously shared with you, my colleagues. Commissioner Rogers, it looks like you have some other comments too.
Sure, I sent my comments, I think, to those who were involved, and I won't be voting in favor. I won't be voting opposed either, because I'm still a little confused about what this means in the long run. It's a great idea to ask for free money. It's always a great idea to serve the causes that we hold dear to our hearts. But I don't know the sustainability of it. And that's why I kept saying, well, what's our business plan? What happens when the money runs out after a year or two? And are we prepared then to continue on with the program? And how's that going to work? And the chair asked some great questions as well about what is the financial impact? That was in her original email. And so I've seen so many times that governments we run at free money, and then we find ourselves with obligations that we didn't anticipate. So I like the idea. I like if we could get some money. I certainly like the program. I just don't think it's been thought out enough yet to answer what the long-term implications are. So I want to make my comments, and I won't. I'll abstain, because if there's a majority who says send it, great. You all will be dealing with it, I guess, in the 2 years. Well, I'll still be here dealing with what are we going to do now once the money runs out if we get it. So that's my comments.
Chair Harrington, just a couple of comments. I think I didn't answer one of the questions. With these funds, we would hire, if we were successful in receiving the funds, we would hire a project coordinator who would work with the cities to develop the full plan that Commissioner Rogers is discussing, and that's part of this grant. I think of it as it is a planning grant that really is intended to help us develop that sustainability plan. And as far as everything that I have read about this, it does not commit us beyond the 2 years if for some reason we were unable to come up with a suitable sustainability plan that both the board as well as our city partners would agree to. So I'm hopeful, maybe Pollyanna, that we could within those 2 years develop a plan that's acceptable to everybody. But if we did not, then there is no obligation to continue this partnership.
Ms. Kyle, if I can add to that, in my conversations with the city managers, they also have similar questions to the questions you raised, Commissioner Rogers. And there's a desire to come together as a group and have that focused discussion, because there is significant concern across the county around the state of homelessness. And this could be an opportunity for us to come together to form what that a sustainable strategy and partnership model could be, in addition to our SHS funds.
Can I add then, if everybody's agreeing that is the issue, and I agree too, I'm all for chasing funds. If everyone understands going in, and you don't see 2 years from now partners who say, well, why did you do that and why can't you sustain it? I don't like rowing the boat by myself. Myself means all of us. And it seems like if we could add some language that says that, you know, our partner group, which is broader than the county, we understand. And so and maybe that's what I was missing. And I'm trying to get to a yes and trying to figure out how do we put something in there so that we're all on the hook, just not those of us who are looking at each other right now. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes.
Could I ask a question, please? Commissioner Rogers, it seems to me that we're talking about an issue that comes up after we get the money. Is that true? Number one, and I think that I think the application process, I'm comfortable going for the application process and then working together to see to make sure that we've got clear lines of communication and clear approaches to how to spend that. It seems to me that we need to have the money to have the problem. So, you know, and that's why I'm going to be voting in favor of this. Because I think that it's a problem that we can work together to solve. I also like the fact that it brings us into that positive relationship basis with the cities around a very large issue that's a shared issue.
You changed my mind. I liked your comments.
Thank you.
I also want to add some reassurance that this is actually not even the application step. This is a letter of intent. And so before we would move forward with the application step, this board, as well as the cities, would need to approve the plan, the application. Now, I don't know exactly what the application looks like yet because AOC and League of Oregon Cities has not provided that, but just a little bit more reassurance. This is just a letter to say we intend to apply, and it doesn't even obligate us. If we looked at the application and we met with the cities and they said, no, never mind, we wouldn't move forward. So this board will have another opportunity to give a thumbs up before we actually apply. I think we're just really wanting to support our city's interests in this partnership.
So the kind of information that I was mentioning needed to be included on the need statement doesn't need to be included with this letter, rather with the application. Terrific. That's great. That solves my need right there.
Yeah, I'm sorry that wasn't clear in my email or communication.
So,
I have a
commissioners.
question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Fye.
Marnie, first, congratulations on your second day of this new job. You look different. Must be your new role. But joke delivered by Zoom. My question, it's the letter. I get it. It's a letter of intent, and you would need to be invited. But my thing, it's a bit of a semantics. The last of the letter mentions communities of color, which is a pretty big statement. And then it talks about we're going to do equity. We're going to use equity. So I feel like the first sentence isn't needed. And if you are going to use it, I would rather have a strong sentence next to it about what you're going to do, how you're going to center communities of color, rather than saying we're going to use equity to improve the outcomes, because it felt like it overstepped and I'm being sensitive here. And I think this is also a reflection of how communities of color feel about being used in opportunities to chase money, to use somebody else's words. But then the outcomes continue to be, sorry, but despair, and continue to despair. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to connect with Latricia Tillman to figure out a stronger sentence next to that, rather than saying we're going to do equity, or get rid of the communities of color you mentioned in that first sentence and say we're going to use equity for the implementation. That way we're not using communities of color, and then also not really meaning or what we say. So those are my two feedbacks of the letter. Other than that, I do support asking to be invited to apply this money.
Thank you. We can work on some edits, and I'm certainly happy to work with Latricia. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fye. With those, with that direction on comments for this letter of interest, are we comfortable as a commission to move forward? Terrific. I think that's the best we could hope for at this stage.
Thank you.
And that concludes my items. Sorry, I gave the thumbs up because I thought, Chair, you were actually asking if staff were clear, so I didn't want to unmute.
No, that's okay.
So that's enough for me for a week.
All righty, Mr. Carr, County Council.
Good afternoon, Chair Harrington. I don't have much yet. I would like to just bring you up to date on the federal vaccine mandate. You may remember that. The Fifth Circuit issued an order staying it. The multi-district litigation was consolidated in the Sixth Circuit. The Department of Justice has filed a motion to lift the stay. The Sixth Circuit has set today as a deadline for anybody else who wants to file a motion to lift, extend, or revoke the stay. The deadline for responses to those motions is December 7th, and the replies are due December 10th. So what we know from that is the stay will be in effect at least through December 10th, and the Sixth Circuit will make some decisions sometime thereafter. It's interesting that the briefing schedule is so tight, with a week and then 3 days to reply. So they're doing it on a very fast track. So I would expect a decision sometime before the end of the year, certainly, and my guess is before Christmas. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
All righty. We'll look forward to learning more in the weeks ahead. Ms. Taniguchi Dennis, CEO of Clean Water Services.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, and good afternoon to the Board of Clean Water Services. On the first item, I wanted to update you on Clean Water Services selection to participate in the U.S. and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Smart Water Engagements Program. So we are the third utility that's been selected in the U.S. For this program, and it's to partner with these countries to take a look at water issues and to share best practices. And there's a lot of interest in Clean Water Services' very holistic and practical approach on solving water challenges for the benefit of public health and the environment. The first utility that was selected was San Francisco, and they're partnering with Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. The second utility that was selected was Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they're partnering with Phuket, Thailand. We were partnered with Vientiane, which is the capital city of Laos. So we had our very first high-level overview between our two cities, our two utilities, and the additional attendees on the call were the U.S. Water Partnership, Water Environment Federation, and the U.S. Embassy in Vientiane. So it's a long journey that they have. They're managing high-strength wastewater that's currently in open ditches and creeks, and it's really impacting their daily lives. And they are really inspired by the journey from the formation of the Unified Sewerage Agency nearly 51 years ago to what we've accomplished over that time as Clean Water Services. I think we represent a hope of what can be done in communities when they work together. So we're very excited about it. There's going to be an international exchange. They'll be coming here, as well as the program supports. I'm sending a team from Clean Water Services there to begin the dialogue. But it's a very fulfilling ability for us to share our knowledge and what we know about water. The second item is that we added an agenda item to the board packet. It's item C21 to authorize the Chief Executive Officer to sign the settlement and release related to the sewers in the Garden Villas neighborhood. And I wanted to point out that the only substantive change in from the draft settlement agreement that you saw is that we wanted to address the very important issue raised by the board to really define the security for any loan to property owners from Clean Clean Water Services, as well as in the event that there's a reverse mortgage situation. So the team worked on that. And we really appreciate the chair and Director Rogers for raising those issues for us. On the third item, I was very honored to be with Dr. Ken Williamson on November 18th, and he received from Oregon State University the Oregon Stater Award, and he was inducted into the OSU Academy of Distinguished Engineers for his excellence and contribution to engineering. And particularly noted was his advancement in measuring the COVID virus in wastewater and all of that great work and innovation that was done there. But it was really a pleasure to be down at Oregon State University with him, and how honored he truly was. We do have one case of an employee exposure to a positive household member. Other than that, Clean Water Services is doing very well with managing COVID in the workforce. And we still have no cases that were generated from Clean Water Services. It was all exposures because of their private lives. And I did want to share with the board some joyful news. I'm going to have a new role in life. And I don't know if you know, but I'm going to be a grandmother in July of 2022. So I'm really looking forward to that stage in life. And we're just delighted with the news. So with that, thank you, board.
So now you'll be raising a second generation for our future. Oh, thank you. That's
You won't
wonderful.
be able to stop smiling.
That's grand. Are there any last board questions on leadership communication? Seeing none, I just want to ensure we've all had the benefit of seeing what has been updated in our packet for this evening's meeting. On the consent agenda, there have been two changes. Item C17, which is an IGA with the City of Beaverton, the signature page was revised. And as Ms. Taniguchi Dennis mentioned, item C21 was added with regard to Clean Water Services. Beyond that, item D2, the PowerPoint was revised, as was item F1, the PowerPoint for that topic. And then the resolution and order for the construction career pathways item G2 was revised as well. That's it for the summary of changes for this evening. Does anyone have any questions or concerns that you want or need to raise now? No? Okay. Well then, we'll move on a few minutes late to our next topic. I'd like to welcome Rebecca Miller, who is leading our Disability, Aging, and Veteran Services Division in Health and Human Services. There she is. Welcome, Ms. Miller, to talk to us about appointing members to the Aging and Veteran Services Advisory Council. Take it away, Ms. Miller.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. As you mentioned, I'm Rebecca Miller, Supervisor for Disability, Aging, and Veteran Services. At the December 14th board meeting, we'll be asking you to appoint 3 new members to our Aging and Veteran Services Advisory Council, each for a 3-year term that ends on June 30th, 2024. I did have a chance to meet personally with each applicant over Zoom, and they all also attended and presented their qualifications at our November advisory council meeting. So I just want to give you a real brief bio on each of them. You also have information about them in your packets. The 3 new members we're requesting are Robert Dalton, Gail Green, and Carol Salter. Mr. Dalton is a resident of District 3, and he has an interest really in ensuring that veterans are served to the best of their ability and able to receive the services that they're entitled to, which is a great fit for us. He identifies as a white male veteran over the 60 and has a great long history of service. Ms. Green is a resident of District 4. She has an interest in issues that concern older adults and people with disabilities, and she's advocated on accessibility issues and disaster response in large communities, and is a graduate of the American Red Cross Disaster Institute. She has volunteer management experience and works with service animals and uses a service animal. She's a published author and writer and is just very active in the area. She identifies herself as disabled over the age of 60 and a member of the LGBTQ community. Ms. Salter is a resident of District 3. She definitely also has an interest in older adults and veterans, and she's the president and CEO of Easter Seals Oregon, provides oversight and administration to the Senior Community Service Employment Program and 4 homeless veteran employment programs. She identifies herself as a white woman over the age of 60. Each of these hopeful appointees have attended, like I said, and presented their qualifications, and then the full AVSAC voted to recommend them to you for your appointment. We do have some additional applicants in the pipeline, but if each of these applicants are appointed at your December 14th meeting, we will have 3 regular appointments, vacancies, and 6 alternate available, and will be comprised of 25% from folks that identify from communities of color, 50% male, female, and 69% people over the age of 60. I'll take any questions. Otherwise, it'd be on your consent agenda on December 14th.
Commissioners, any questions or comments? I know I appreciated the package and all the work that you've put in to increase the pipeline and help community members not only have the opportunity to participate, but to feel valued on the advisory council.
Thank you.
I don't see any other board questions or comments, so I take that to mean we'll be ready on December 14th.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Keep up the good work. Next, we'll move on to land use and transportation, where we'll be discussing the reappointment for the Northwest Area Commission on Transportation, known as NWACT, community representation, that's a reappointment, and then a large city member affirmation. Welcome, Mr. Roberts, Director of Washington County's Land Use and Transportation Department.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Chris Steffenbach's actually going to walk us through just a really brief overview and provide some info, and then we look for your guidance, and we're happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Chris Steffenbach, Senior Policy Analyst with Land Use and Transportation. And we're here today to tell you about our recommendation for the reappointment for a Northwest Area Commission on Transportation member and the affirmation of our large city members as well. And I'll move on to the next slide. So a little background on Northwest Act. Just a reminder that it was established by the Oregon Transportation Commission to advise on transportation policy and project and priorities. And it includes the area of Clatsop, Tillamook, Columbia counties, plus Western Washington County. And you should know that the only city included in Washington County in the Northwest Act is the city of Banks. So they are both our large city and our small city. The bylaws allow for up to 29 members, including representatives from the counties. And of course, Commissioner Willie represents your board on that committee. Other members come from the cities, the ports, the transit, state parks, Department of Transportation, federal recognized tribes, and there are 2 citizen at large positions per county. And members serve 2-year terms that can be reappointed. The citizen at large positions do not have alternates. Next slide. So again, for the members representing Western Washington County on the Northwest Act, there's the county commissioners appointed by the board, and the alternate can be non-elected, and Joe Yonkins is our alternate for Commissioner Willie. Then there's the largest city representative, City of Banks, appointed by the City of Banks and affirmed by the Washington County Board. And I just wanted to highlight this, that it's under a little asterisk in the bylaws that the city representatives are supposed to be affirmed by the Washington County Board of Commissioners. And Stephen and I delved into the archives and found past affirmations where the board has done this, and the current City of Banks appointments have not been affirmed by the Washington County, so we are folding this in to this information as well. Then there is the third is the citizen at large positions appointed by the Washington County Board. So the next slide, please. So we have we are recommending the reappointment of Mike Borison. He has been a citizen at large position since 2011, has been reappointed several times. He previously was an engineer with Washington County. He lives in the Buxton community, and he has served, as we said, for Northwest Act for about 10 years, and identifies as a white and male. And I want to say we are very lucky, I think, to have him. When we took over this, LUT took over this appointment process, I worked with our communications manager, Melissa DeLizer, and we did a lot of extra outreach. We did, with all Melissa's skills in social media and print media, the local newspapers, the Spanish translations, we did a lot for outreach in this area. And we had some interest, but no one that lives in this area that is the boundaries of the Northwest Act. So we are really very fortunate to have Mike Borison continue to be interested in participating. And as I said before, this is also an opportunity for your board, to affirm the City of Banks appointments, the voting member of City Councilor Marcia Kirk, as well as her alternate, which is Jolynn Becker from the city manager for Banks. And then we would continue to seek applications for the second citizen at large position. We actually just last week had someone submit an application in response to the latest solicitation that selected that they wanted to live, interested in being on the Northwest Act, but we found out that they live over in Commissioner Treese's district, really pretty far to the east. And so they didn't live in the area. So I think that is, so what we would, I'm happy to answer questions about the process. The bylaws are included in your packet, as well as the rosters. So you see the other members on the Northwest Act, and you will notice, as I did, that nobody has more than one, if I can remember this right, has more than one citizen at large. So it might be a little hard to recruit. So we are currently scheduled to bring this back to you for action on December 14th. We just want to provide this opportunity to explain this and answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions or comments?
Two questions, Chris. One, I didn't hear Jerry's nomination back up again. Is that a separate action at some point? Or is he still in term?
I think didn't you guys just reappoint him last year?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I think that's probably handled through the board's process of assigning representatives.
Okay, fine. I just didn't hear that. And my second question is just out of my intellectual curiosity. It has nothing to do with anything you presented, but I've always wondered what percentage of that act Washington County is in terms of, I don't know land area, I wasn't saying population. Are we a bigger player, a smaller player?
I think it's a smaller player, but I'd have to look at the other county populations. I think we have between 20 and 30,000 people living in that area. And I have to be honest, the boundaries have always been a bit fuzzy. They're divided along the ODOT's maintenance districts. So they're a little hard to be precise, but it's roughly, I think it's up to 30,000 now that live in a very large area. Wait, I think I should say, let me caution that. Let me take that back. I think it's 30,000 that live
In our
in
rural areas.
unincorporated outside of the UGB, not just the Northwest Act boundary. Yeah, that's right. So it's not a lot.
So I'll finish up with, I really appreciate, as you mentioned, Mr. Borison's experience and willingness to serve over these last 10 years and continue to serve. I was just wondering about what efforts we either are already making or could consider making into the future to extend the pipeline. And so specifically, I was wondering, does this mean since the city of Banks has a representative, does that disqualify a resident of the city of Banks serving as an at-large position? And then similarly, have we ever ensured that ROMAC has the opportunity of knowing about the Northwest Act boundary, and for potential members of ROMAC to, or at least our description of ROMAC to also refer to the Northwest Act, because there may be folks who there's some potential cross-fertilization of service there.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah,
no
I think
increase of pressure by any stretch.
Yeah, no, I know, and Melissa and I really scraped in terms of getting the word out on this, but we will continue to work on that. I think we hit all of those. I think that it is something that we can draw the attention to Banks for them, because I believe the citizen at larges are eligible residents of Banks.
Oh, good.
So
okay.
I understand that the bylaws aren't split. Yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't be. So yeah, we'll keep looking and hopefully bring you back another applicant, but we did want to get this one in front of you. We were trying to wait to do them both, and we decided that was not going to work.
Well, I think from the lack of questions, concerns, and additional comments, I think we're ready to move forward with it on December 14th.
Okay.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Terrific. Well, now we're going to move to another aspect of our community that we know is so vital to our sense of community, and that is of our libraries. So welcome Lisa Tattersall, our Cooperative Library Services Manager.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. I'm Lisa Tattersall, Manager of Washington County Cooperative Library Services, or WCCLS. And I'm here today to provide an update on the Intergovernmental Agreement, or IGA, process with our member libraries, in particular around the funding allocations. Next slide, please. I'll start with sharing some background and context. Then I'll review the draft funding mechanisms and allocations. And then after that, I'll share where we are with the timeline to get these agreements completed. Next slide, please. Background. Okay, one more slide. Thank you. So the issue of how each library is funded is complex because each library in our cooperative is independent and unique in how it's governed. 9 are operated by cities, 3 are operated by nonprofits, and 1, the West Slope Community Library, is owned and operated by the county. Each library hires their own staff, sets their own pay scales, decides what library materials they choose to buy, what programs they offer, and what their facilities needs are. Nonprofit libraries and the West Slope Library are heavily funded by the county because they are in unincorporated areas, and so they have no other governmental revenue stream, although the nonprofits in particular do a great job of fundraising. The county has operated West Slope Library since voters approved the first WCCLS ballot measure in 1976, which established a number of county-supported community libraries. City libraries have the benefit of receiving funding from both the county and their individual cities. There is variance in the amount of support cities dedicate to their libraries, and there's no minimum required contribution of local support from cooperative members. Next slide, please. This graph shows the proportion of each library's revenue that is provided by the county versus the amount of support each city allocates to its library. The data comes from the fiscal year 1920 data, which was self-reported by libraries to the State Library of Oregon in our annual reporting. Funding library initiatives and services in our cooperative is a shared financial responsibility and partnership, and we're very happy to work with our partners to make this happen. Next slide, please. At the work session about library IGAs on September 14th, the board discussed the current method of the library funding distribution model, the need to reevaluate it in the future to ensure that we're meeting community needs and particularly centering the needs of residents who have been traditionally underserved. And so we are looking forward to developing a process with the cooperative that incorporates community input and data analysis to create an equity-focused funding model as we lead up to and plan for the next levy cycle. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to briefly review the historical library funding allocations before I go into the proposed allocations for the coming 4 years. Next slide. And sorry, this is a lot of numbers. Okay. So the current levy cycle included a 5-cent increase in the rate from 17 cents to 22 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, which allowed each library to receive a one-time 4% allocation increase from WCCLS in fiscal year 16-17. In addition, an additional weighted increase was made for each library, and those ranged from 3% to 11%. This was also a one-time increase that happened in that year. The additional increase was determined by using a set of metrics, which were circulation or checkouts, library visits, and the number of residents in each library's service area. On top of these one-time increases in 16-17, each library has received a 3% increase in their allocation each year right through this fiscal year. In addition, some libraries saw expanded operational funding to support expanding services in larger facilities. These funds to support expanded facilities were called Jumpstart Operating Funds, and the operational funding increases that were awarded, they were incorporated into libraries who received it. It was incorporated into their funding every year going forward, so it wasn't a one-time thing. The orange boxes on the slide show when the increases in funding were incorporated. And I'll just review those real quick. So in 17-18, banks added a new meeting room onto their existing library, and their funding increased by 29% from the previous year to support operating meeting room space, event space, and all the great stuff they're doing there. That same fiscal year, Garden Home added an annex space for community events as well, and their funding increased by 24% from the previous year. In fiscal year 18-19, Cornelius built a new library building, and their funding increased by 91% from the previous year. And last but not least, Cedar Mill Bethany branch added an annex space for events, and funding was increased by 5%. That sounds really small because the Cedar Mill main library receives most of the allocation, and they're included in that total. So, okay, next slide, please. So this slide shows the maintenance of the library funding allocations with the maintenance of our levy rate of 22 cents, and then including the annual 3% increases through the end of the levy cycle. Okay, I'm just gonna pause. Okay, next slide. So now we'll go over the proposed funding mechanisms for the IGA. So the first funding mechanism is the library operations allocation, which you may remember used to be called Pool 1 in the current IGAs and previous IGAs, but we're trying to call things how they, call things what they actually are and what they do, so they make sense. So this is library operations allocation, and that's the amounts we were just reviewed in the previous slide. So it's the primary allocation of funds to our libraries so that they can operate. The allocations would remain the same for each library as in 21-22, but with a 3% annual increase as long as countywide assessed value increases by at least 3%. Next slide, please. The revenue contingent allocation was formerly known as Pool 2. And this is a method to distribute additional revenue should tax revenue come in higher than we project. And what we would do is that once actual property tax revenues for the prior fiscal year are available in the fall, WCCLS would calculate whether there is additional revenue to allocate to libraries using this formula. We would then go to the executive board with that, and then to this board of commissioners, our governing board, to see if you want to approve that distribution. And if so, then we would allocate these funds to libraries with the next quarterly payment cycle. Next slide, please. Okay, the equity funds are a new funding mechanism to support the board's and the cooperative's equity goals. Based on the current projections, it's estimated there will be about $500,000 annually for equity funds. And these would be, I should back up and say, so we're estimating $500,000 annually based on all of the current assessed value forecasts and costs and all of that. So it could change going forward. And we're able to do this by keeping library increases to 3% and then also capping our digital content expenditures at 5%. So these this funding mechanism would provide 3 opportunities for advancing equity. And the first one is that it would support libraries in compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which are requirements we would include in the IGAs this time around. And so WCCLS would provide access to translation and interpretation services for all libraries, identify vital documents and services, making those available in target languages. And that's going to come with a cost that we can cover using these funds. These funds would also help the cooperative begin a multi-year process of community and stakeholder engagement to analyze our structure and funding model, leading up to planning for the investments needed in the next levy. And we would want to contract with agencies to support this important evaluation and engagement work. Then funds remaining would support other countywide equity initiatives, and the executive board proposes to create a task force that would develop a process to allocate remaining funds to achieve countywide equity goals. Next slide, please. Oh, there. Yep, that's it. Thank you. The executive board met on November 17th, so just 2 weeks ago, to review the draft language in the IGAs for the funding mechanisms that I just reviewed with you all and the amounts. The group was on the whole very supportive of moving forward with these draft funding allocations and mechanisms, as well as supportive of moving forward with a process starting next fiscal year to evaluate the equity of our model, our funding model, as we prepare for the next levy cycle. Okay, next slide, please. And then the process timeline, one more slide. Thank you. So here's where we are with the timeline. The funding allocations are, I think, the biggest part of the IGAs. And so the goal was to have these settled by December so that libraries could have draft dollar amounts so that to help plan their fiscal year 22-23 budgets. So at the next IGA meeting in December, we're going to talk about draft language covering service obligations for WCCLS and libraries, as well as the civil rights compliance portion of it, which is new. At our meeting in January, we're going to review draft language for governance, termination, and then I think those probably won't change all that much, but the information technology section of the agreements, we'll be looking at updated things around records retention and who's the custody of data and all that fun stuff. So that's what we'll be covering in January. After that, we plan to return to the board in February with completed draft IGAs for your review and input. And then the goal would be to have finalized agreement language in March. So then we have 3 months to get everything executed. And then the new agreements would take effect in July. And that's all I had. Oh, Chair Harrington.
Real quick on that slide, Lisa.
Yeah.
What does CAP stand for?
Sorry, a cooperative agreement process. That's my bad. And it's the WCCLS Executive Board and the policy group, which is the name of the group for the library directors meeting together. And we're doing those together just because it's more efficient. We're trying to move through a lot of material. Thank you for catching that.
Thank you. Yeah. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions that Lisa can help us with today? Go ahead, Commissioner Rogers.
Lisa, thank you for explaining the process. This organization reminds me a little bit about like how Metro operates. Everybody loves it to be there, but they blame it for all of the issues. And what I hear from the cities is that, gee, the county isn't listening, or the county doesn't do this or that. Is there, and this is more for me, maybe others don't have this question, but how are we ever going to get out of the middle of the punching bag? I mean, it just seems like this was all designed for the county. I was there when we did it, and we said, well, we'll facilitate this, but everybody's going to divide these up. The county had no libraries in those days, and so there wasn't the allocation to the other smaller ones. But it was never intended that we would be the not the referee. We would be the one that everybody punches. It just seems, and maybe I'm over dramatizing, but it seems like we're caught in that middle ground often. Is that ever going to change, or what would you suggest that be done to kind of lessen your load as well as complaints? Others might be hearing it, I hear it. And I keep saying that's the cooperative process. That's supposed to work through the process, not necessarily through us. So does that make sense what I'm asking to you? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a really great question for us to keep in mind as we go through and look at how we work together and how we want to allocate funding and how we want to have those conversations. I think that's a really critical question to bring to that. I do appreciate, I mean, we're kind of like a big messy family sometimes. And so, I do think that there's a lot of commitment to that shared work that we all want to do together, and that is really great. I also think that role clarity can help a lot going forward. And I think that that's something that we've, not at the IG level, but at the operational level, we've been really working towards with our libraries, is role clarity around who does what. And I think that role clarity lens is going to be an important one as we move forward at looking at IGAs and funding and all of that as well.
Can I add something, Lisa, just real quick, and I'll stop. But I always admired when I was on JPAC, some of the facilitators, not calling facilitators, they were chairs of that group from Metro. They always really pointed out what their role was and defined it. So it was, you all are making the decision. We're just facilitating the meeting and attempting to, to bring you to some consensus. And I thought that was an important message. So I don't know if that message is being delivered by you or by the cooperative. I assume that you're doing your best, but I liked your comment on role definition. Yeah. And so maybe you could do that in the future, and at least they won't tar and feather you. I mean, I think that's important.
Thank you. Yeah, I think role clarity is always really helpful, and I think that will be beneficial going forward. Thank you.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Fye, I think Commissioner Tree said nothing. Okay, nothing to contribute. I just have a couple of items, Lisa. Moving forward with the task force, will they, I'm really glad we finally have our first set of information from the US Census, from the information from last year, right? The 2020 census. So I'm assuming that the task force will be using that as a key set of data for discussing conditions throughout our communities.
Yeah.
So I can be assured of that?
Yep. And I'm just making a note. I think what I really want to do is, as we move forward with that equity funding pool, we'll take, the civil rights compliance and then the facilitation support and all of that. As we roll forward, I think that conversation on how that task force conversation will happen next fiscal year. And so I'm looking forward to working with our equity office as well to get some support in how we support that group to make sure they're incorporating, like you said, the 2020 census data and all of that really good information.
Thank you. The other comment that I have is that this board has received a scathing letter from the city of Cornelius, and you helped me be prepared for a meeting with the City of Cornelius City Manager and their library director, who were quite bothered by the direction that this board provided at our last work session. So what I find really a little puzzling is, given the 2019 recommendation to the board for the 2020 levy renewal by the WCCLS Executive Board, could you please review the record to see if either parties raised their concerns during the time of the levy renewal? I find it a little puzzling that the city manager of Cornelius was the campaign co-chair for the levy renewal. So I'm a little puzzled why he waited, I believe waited until this IGA process to raise an issue that he and the library director, according to the correspondence that we've all received, they believe has gone on for decades, and way before our time, way before we even referred the measure in the early part of 2022. I don't know, Commissioner Treese and Commissioner Rogers were on the board along with me with that referral, and I have no recollection of that that issue being raised at that time. So if staff, Ms. Angie could help us by looking back at the record of correspondence that we had in forming up that proposal and the referral, that would be really helpful.
And I had one thing though, maybe you narrow your search to the equity question, because that's a new component that I don't think was really considered at the time. And as I understand from reading the Cornelius, if I've read it correctly, they're wanting to have more of an equity percentage allocation than they got. And so I think that's what's going on. So I bet we don't find it exactly. I mean, it's a good point, but I bet you we don't find exactly what their issue is. Again, we're in the middle. We're the punching bag.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Commissioner Rogers. But their letter does refer to past efforts, and I'm just not familiar with those. So thank you. Yep. You know, it is a cooperative. We're better off with it than without it. It's how the system works here in our diverse community of 13 cities in Washington County, so that we have a great public library system available to everyone. So I really appreciate the cooperative library service. So keep up your great work, Lisa.
Thank you, Chair and Board, for your support.
And we'll look forward to having you come back with us in February and March of next year.
Sounds good. See you then.
Take care.
Bye.
All righty, that brings us to the end of our posted agenda topics. Are there any other things you want or need us to check in with today, commissioners or leadership? All righty, well, guess what, folks? We get to end early. Yay! We'll see you back on Zoom for our board meeting, which will start at 6:30 in the evening. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.